We pretty much concluded the major 2025 offseason moves, and we pretty much know 99% of the rosters going into the 2026 season. I wanted to give you guys the 10 most improved teams from the offseason. First team I want to talk about, maybe the most intriguing team in the Eastern Conference next season, the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks made some major moves this offseason to go all in with a wide open conference around their franchise superstar, Trae Young. They started off the offseason by trading for Kristaps Porzingis, essentially giving up the 22nd pick in the draft, George Niang, and Terrence Mann for Kristaps, who has looked phenomenal in the Eurobasket this summer for Team Mafia. He looks healthy, he looks fresh, he's even rocking some new facial hair, and he could be such a lethal pick and pop option with Trae Young in 2026 if he could stay healthy. He played 65 games for Washington in 2023, 57 games for Boston in 2024, and then just 42 games for Boston in 2025. A big key for the Hawks' success next season is going to be Kristaps Porzingis' health, because how are you going to defend a Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis pick and pop? Are you going to blitz Trae Young? Are you going to go under screens? Are you going to double Trae Young? Because either way, Trae or KP is going to get a decent look from three, and both of those guys can be elite three-point shooters. And it wasn't just Kristaps Porzingis the Atlanta Hawks added this offseason. They also used their mid-level exception and a trade exception from last offseason in the DeJounte Murray trade to go out and get Nickeil Alexander-Walker for a second-round pick from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Nickeil Alexander-Walker showed that he could be one of the best perimeter defenders, especially in the playoffs. We saw that on display in the 2024 and in the 2025 playoffs for Minnesota, helping the Wolves go to back-to-back conference finals as arguably the best perimeter defender on that team, right up there with Jaden McDaniels. So now he's going from one of the best perimeter defenders being next to in McDaniels to now Dyson Daniels, who was an all-defensive first-team member last year. Having those guys just blitz the lead ball handler, bringing it up, double teams, point of attack stopping defense is going to be crucial for Atlanta down the stretch, because now you have Trae Young out there. We know he's not a great defender, but you surround him with Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Jalen Johnson. That could be a recipe for success. They also signed Luke Kennard on a one-year deal as well, somebody that could be a backup point guard in a pinch in case Trae Young is in foul trouble or needs a breather. Basically, every single year of his career, he shot 40% from three or better. They took a flyer on Caleb Houston. They drafted Asa Newell, a lob threat from Georgia, and just the internal development on this team with guys that I mentioned like Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson, as well as the #1 overall pick from the 2024 draft, Zachary Sachet, who had an encouraging Eurobasket as well. Atlanta could be a big riser in the Eastern Conference next season. They're not going to be competing for an NBA title next year. They may not even make the playoffs or the play-in tournament, but I do think they got better this offseason, and that is going to be the Charlotte Hornets. An issue the Hornets had last year, they didn't have any depth behind their injury-riddled franchise star in LaMelo Ball, but they addressed that hole this offseason, giving them one of the deeper backcourts in the Eastern Conference, picking up Spencer Dinwiddie on a one-year deal. They're going to get Trae Mann back healthy, who was injured for almost all of the 2025 season when we penciled him as a big breakout candidate. They also traded away Yusuf Nurkic for Colin Sexton and a second-round pick. Colin Sexton, I feel like, could be one of the more undervalued pickups this offseason, given how efficient he is in the half court, how hard he plays, and could be a great backup or complementary piece to LaMelo Ball. They also drafted Con Knipple and Liam McNeely in the first round of the 2025 draft, guys that are known for their three-point shooting and floor spacing ability, can be great pieces around LaMelo Ball. And they still have Josh Green, Nick Smith Jr., and KJ Simpson on their roster right now. Brandon Miller, Grant Williams are going to be healthy for the 2026 season. They still have Miles Bridges. A Tijon Salon year #2 lead could be in the cards, and this team should just be better as long as they're healthier in 2026. I do expect them to still have one of the worst big man rotations in the league. Right now, it's Mason Plumlee as their projected starter. That's a no-go from me. They do have Ryan Kalkbrenner and Moussa Diabate, who can be more intriguing starters than Mason Plumlee, but as long as they're just healthier in 2026, they can get their internal development. I love them adding some depth behind LaMelo Ball, something they've lacked pretty much throughout most of LaMelo Ball's career. This team that won 19 games last year could even double their win total in 2026. Let's talk about my first Western Conference team. I believe the Lakers are one of the more improved teams in the Western Conference this offseason. I don't think they got 10 or so wins better. I don't think they're a top team in the Western Conference, but last year we saw how desperate they were for some big man depth in the playoffs, or just somebody better than Jackson Hayes out there. They went out and got DeAndre Ayton. Now, I'm not going to say that DeAndre Ayton is going to be what he was in the early 2020s with the Phoenix Suns, but he's going to be a lot more of an imposing threat down low than what Jackson Hayes was for them last season. The last time DeAndre Ayton was part of a winning team was in 2023 with the Phoenix Suns, and he did average 18 points, 10 rebounds on 58% shooting because he had a great point guard like Chris Paul getting him the ball. Well, he's going to have two great passers in LeBron James and Luka Doncic getting him the ball as well in Los Angeles. Angeles, I think he can have a bounce back year from not really being as locked in as he's been over the last 2 years for a non-competitive Portland Trailblazers team, because he didn't really even play in the second half last year when Portland turned things around. Maybe there's a correlation there, who knows? The Lakers also lack some perimeter defense around LeBron James and Luka Doncic, in my opinion, and I like them going out and getting Jake LaRavia this offseason, who's not an elite perimeter defender by any means, but I think could be an upgrade over somebody like a Dalton Connect on the perimeter. And I love them going out and getting Marcus Smart. Now, I'm upset they didn't bring back Jordan Goodwin, but I believe Marcus Smart still has a little bit of positive defensive ability in his arsenal. They're going to get Jared Vanderbilt healthy this year. He didn't debut till January 25th last year. Now he's going to be healthy for the first time in 2 years going into a regular season. He's got LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves initiating for him. This could be a career offensive year as well. We're getting year 2 JJ Redick with all the experience he has now. I like them picking up a Adu Thero in the draft. Like I said, I don't think they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference, but I do think they got better from the 2025 season. A team that I think got really better from the 2025 season in the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets. Last year, they went 50-32. It felt like a down year for Denver. It felt like Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, or Aaron Gordon at a certain time last year was having a disappointing season. They did put it together down the stretch. They fired Mike Malone after 79 games, which was crazy, firing your coach 3 games away from the playoffs. And David Adelman was able to lead these guys to a round 1 game 7 victory against the LA Clippers, a very tough round 1 matchup, and they pushed the OKC Thunder to 7 games as well in round number 2. And all the good things from the 2025 Nuggets are staying. Obviously, they have the best player in the NBA, in my opinion, in Nikola Jokic. Aaron Gordon had a really good season last year and a really good playoffs before the hamstring injury. Jamal Murray finished off the season on a very good note. Christian Brown was great last year, and I think Julian Strawther showed some flashes in the playoffs as well, and they addressed their holes. They add some shooting on the perimeter in Tim Hardaway Jr. for a veteran minimum. They get a great swingman role player that's worked in Denver before in Bruce Brown, who is one of the more vital pieces of their 2023 championship team. They're getting their 2024 first round pick healthy in De'Ron Holmes, who tore his Achilles in Summer League going into his rookie season and looked healthy and great in this year's Summer League. They also traded away Dario Saric, who was a negative player for them at times last year, for Jonas Valanciunas. And they also added Cam Johnson in return for Michael Porter Jr. in a trade, which gave them more financial flexibility to go out and get Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Jonas Valanciunas. And I also just like Cam Johnson around Jokic a little bit more. I think Cam Johnson is going to have a career year this year in Denver. So this team got better on paper. They won 50 games last year. They pushed the eventual finals champions to 7 in round number 2. Who's to say the Nuggets can't win it all in 2026 or be a 1 seed in the Western Conference? But there's another team that believes they should be in the same conversation with OKC and Denver as the finals contenders, at least from the Western Conference next year, the Houston Rockets. A team that was a 2 seed last year, that won 52 games with an incredibly young roster, that went to game number 7 against Golden State in round number 1 with no true number 1 guy yet, or at least ready for that workload, and they got that guy this offseason. One of the best number 1 options of all time, and Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant is still playing at an elite level going into year number 18 next season. He was drafted back in 2007. He's going to be 37 years old, but he's still somebody that could shoot 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line, and average 26 points in his sleep. He's going to be playing with maybe the best big man of his career, at least offensively, in Alperen Şengün next year, who's had maybe the most impressive Eurobasket performance you can get right now for Team Turkey. And maybe we're going to see elite from Şengün this year. We can see elite from Amen Thompson, who was an all-defensive first-team guy last year. They have good veterans like Steven Adams, newly acquired, and a reunion with Clint Capella. They have Fred VanVleet, who reworked his contract this offseason. Dorian Finney-Smith they brought in from the Lakers, and we could see another internal development leap from a Reed Shepherd, a Jabari Smith Jr., or a Tari Eason. They re-signed Ime Udoka, gave him an extension. The vibes are high in Houston going into 2026. This could be their first finals ring since the 90s. So I started off this video hyping up the Atlanta Hawks, and maybe when I was introducing them, you thought I was going to talk about this team, the Orlando Magic, because you could say maybe they are the most improved team from the 2025 offseason, and they have a better chance than the Atlanta Hawks to maybe go to the Eastern Conference Finals, or hey, maybe even the NBA Finals next year. They're a team last year that went 41-41, embarrassing enough that actually won the Southeast Division, but they had so many different injuries last year throughout the course of the season. Paul Banchero missed 36 games, Franz Wagner missed 22 games, Jalen Suggs missed 47 games, and Mo Wagner tore his ACL 30 games into the season. They still had one of the best defenses in the NBA, even with all those injuries. They finished second in defensive rating, but once again, they weren't a top 20 offensive rating team, something they haven't done since the 2012 season. When I heard that stat, I thought it was made up. I couldn't believe it, but no, it's true. So they go out this offseason. We know they needed ball handling and shooting, and they got that. They add one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, somebody that I did not think they were going to go out and acquire, and that is Desmond Bane of the Memphis Grizzlies. Desmond Bane has shot over 40% from 3 in his career on around 6 attempts a night. He was an elite three-point shooter shooter in college, and he's going to get some amazing looks playing off of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. They're going to get Jalen Suggs back to be an elite point of attack defender in the half court, somebody that also took offensive strides last year in 2024. That's why he was rewarded a nice contract extension off his rookie deal. I love how they attack the draft with perimeter defense and Noah Penda in the second round, and one of my favorite draft picks overall, Jace Richardson in the first round, just giving them some three-point shooting depth. I mentioned how they needed some ball handling ability. They went out and got Tyus Jones on a one-year deal as well, somebody that could see the floor very well, can get his teammates involved, and isn't going to turn the ball over. I believe in Wendell Carter Jr. having a bounce-back three-point shooting season. Goga Bitadze has looked great in Eurobasket as well. He could be the starting center on opening night. You're going to get Mo Wagner back as well. You could have a top 10 player this year in Paolo Banchero and another top 20 guy in Franz Wagner if he could learn how to shoot again, because he does everything else at an elite level. And I'd even mention guys like Tristan Da Silva, Jonathan Isaac, or maybe top 10 pick from the 2023 draft, Anthony Black, that could also be major contributors for this team. I think they're going to have a better offense this year and still an elite defense. If you were going to tell me that one team not named the Cleveland Cavaliers won 55 games in the Eastern Conference, I think I would say it would be the Orlando Magic over the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks. Well, speaking of the New York Knicks, I do think they are one of the more improved teams from this offseason. I believe switching up their coaching identity will do wonders for them when they get to the playoffs, going from Tom Thibodeau, who's a good regular season coach, a good defensive coach, but sometimes will just be stubborn, adjusting, or just going away from his basketball principles. And they bring in Mike Brown, who will be a little bit more creative and a little bit more willing to try out different things throughout the regular season to have the best lineup and rotation possible for the playoffs, something Tibbs did not do last year. They didn't lose any key contributor last year. They may lose Precious Achiuwa, but they brought back Jalen Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Cat, Mitchell Robinson, OG Anunoby, Miles McBride, and they also brought in Gershon Yabusele, another player who's looked great in Eurobasket this summer and was a really good player for the Philadelphia 76ers last year. I was very shocked when he only got $5.5 million from the Knicks this offseason on a 1+1, because he shot 38% from three last year and was a good defender as a stretch four. And then the Utah Jazz also bought out Jordan Clarkson this offseason, and the Knicks picked him up for the veteran minimum. I don't think Jordan Clarkson is going to be a late game player for the New York Knicks, but he can provide them some offense and initiating and playmaking ability throughout the first 3.5 quarters, and should be a better player than somebody like a Matt Ryan or a Landry Shamet was for them last year. They could also pick up Shamet on a veteran minimum before the offseason is over. I really like Bridges going into year number 2 and Karl-Anthony Towns in New York. Hart and OG should have a lesser workload next year with a deeper rotation, so I think they're going to be a little bit better in the playoffs. And they also have a top 10 player in the league, in my opinion, in Jalen Brunson. Maybe they're not going to win as many regular season games as the Magic or the Cavs, but I do think, as their championship odds reflect them to be, a major final contender and probably a top 2 team overall in the East next year when we get to the playoffs. Technically, this team got better this offseason. Last year, they won 30 games, but they were banged up all over the place, and it didn't work out whatsoever in the 2025 Toronto Raptors. But essentially, they're adding Brandon Ingram to a team that won 30 games last year. Brandon Ingram got traded to Toronto at the deadline, did not play a single minute for the Raptors in the second half. So they're going to get somebody that could walk into the building, average 20 points in his sleep, 5 rebounds and 5 assists, and be a positive three-point shooter. Now, I'm very intrigued to see how it's going to work out with RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes in the half court. I just mentioned OG Anunoby for the New York Knicks, the 2 players they got in the OG trade. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley did not work out whatsoever last year. Reports were they were trying to trade those 2 guys this offseason. I think Quickley will have a major bounce back year next year if he's going to be healthy. We could see Scotty Barnes play a more initiating and point guard role next year. They had Colin Murray-Boyles, arguably the best defender not named Cooper Flagg in the 2025 draft. I love them picking up Sanjo Mamukelashvili from the San Antonio Spurs, somebody that could be a solid backup center to Jakob Poeltl, a player that got a contract extension this offseason. And the Raptors last year in 2025 had the 17th ranked defense. I think a sneaky hot take for me could be that they could be a top 10 defense in 2026. And hey, if the offense could be top 20, we could see the Raptors playing in April or maybe even May in 2026. The 2024 Miami Heat went 46-36. They lost in round number 1 to the Boston Celtics, and they ran most of the same team back, a team that Jimmy Butler did not like. He wanted a contract extension. Pat Riley was not willing to give it to him, and they had so much drama, probably the most drama-filled team last year, before they eventually traded away Jimmy Butler to the Warriors at the deadline. They weren't the best team after the deadline, but their deadline pickups in Andrew Wiggins from the Jimmy trade and Davion Mitchell, which was a separate trade that got orchestrated into that trade, played well for them in the second half. Bam Adebayo struggled in the first half. He was a lot better offensively in the second half as well. I love them getting Kaspersky Jakuchonis with the 20th pick in the draft as well. And they basically got Norman Powell for nothing this offseason. Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love in a second rounder. That was an absolute steal. Even though Powell's under an expiring contract, he's going to be a major addition. Somebody that could have won most improved player when he was 32 last year, going into year number 10. Kel'el Ware was one of the more exciting rookies. Tyler Hero was an all-star, and they still have one of the best head coaches in the NBA in Eric Spoelstra. The Heat may not be a top 3 or 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, but last year they were a play-in team that got embarrassed by Cleveland in round number 1. I think with no drama, internal development, and the offseason additions, this team can go above 500 in 2026. And the last team that I believe got better this offseason, as long as their star player who's been investigated for planting trees on a separate sponsorship deal in Kawhi Leonard of the LA Clippers gets suspended, this team should be better in 2025. Yes, the very old, maybe retirement home LA Clippers, who are investing a ton into a 2-year window with this aging roster. They traded away Norman Powell in that 3-team deal for John Collins from the Utah Jazz. The Clippers last year did not have great front court depth, especially offensively, so they had Collins who could space the floor behind Zubac and Kawhi. They also signed Brook Lopez, who is going to be 38 years old next year, to a 2-year deal to be behind Ivica Zubac. Brook Lopez wasn't great last year, playing 32 minutes a night, but he's going to be a backup to Zubac, so him playing 20 minutes a night, I think you can get a bounce back year for Brook Lopez. They signed Chris Paul as well to be a backup point guard behind James Harden. You still have Chris Dunn, who was an elite defender for them at times last year. Same with Derrick Jones Jr., who was a great pickup for them in the 2024 offseason after moving on from Paul George. Bogdan Bogdanovic was a player they traded Terrence Mann for at the deadline, and he was really good after a bad start with Atlanta. And oh yeah, they also picked up Bradley Beal, who I think could just be pretty similar to what Norman Powell was for them last year, and they were able to get John Collins for Norman Powell. So they essentially just replaced Norman Powell with Bradley Beal, bring in John Collins for the free. They have a good head coach in Ty Lue. You have a potential superstar still in Kawhi Leonard if he can stay healthy and he doesn't get suspended for this whole tree planting situation, which is just a wild storyline that we got this offseason. I thought last year was going to be a disappointing year for the Clippers when Kawhi had to leave the Olympic team. He was hurt to start off the year and they didn't have Paul George anymore. I thought there was a chance they weren't going to have a playoff opportunity last year. They proved me wrong. This team could go to the conference finals next year. They were a threat in the Western Conference playoffs last year. They just had a bad matchup against the Nuggets. Talked about it before, how they went to a game 7. This could be a different Clippers team in 2026. I do think they got better this offseason, and they're the last team that I'm going to mention. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know if you think there's a team that improved more than maybe somebody like the Lakers, Hornets, or Raptors this offseason that you think I should have included in this video. Let me know that down below. And if you did enjoy, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.